guarantees and outrageous car loans, yet they lined up for 10,000 shillings. Tonight we focus on the house of bribes and how your member of parliament could have been bought for a song to shoot down a sugar report or the sugar report. Also tonight, the war on graft picks momentum and everyone is fair game. Plus, has the president put too much PR into the presidency in the ongoing war on graft, or are we just getting down to business? Right, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the Director of Criminal Investigations should look into the claims that members of the National Assembly were bribed to shoot down the report on illegal sugar imports tabled in Parliament last week. It's not the first time the House has waved away accusations of bribery and underhand dealings, but this was perhaps the House's lowest point. Those involved must be investigated by an independent team of investigators, and if evidence is adduced, they be arraigned to face criminal charges. Now, Parliament is the architect of laws. Its members are required to live by them. It's thus insufferable that the House of Honor should be turned into an auction house. It's worse that the report was about essential household commodity. If there is any truth in the claims that the imported sugar was contaminated and that the members of parliament trashed it, then what we have done is to condemn citizens to serious health risks. Only 2 weeks ago, National Assembly Speaker, that's Justin Muturi, outlined strict regulations to guide members of parliament when conducting investigations. But those rules should apply beyond just the committees, as this latest claims strike to the heart of the House. We note that the Speaker, Justin Muturi, has directed the House Privilege Committee to investigate the matter. That is not a solution. We do not expect the committee of the House to do anything meaningful. Members of parliament cannot probe themselves. We need an independent inquiry conducted by professional investigators. In the words of former US President Barack Obama, change will not come if we wait for some other person to do it. We are the change that we seek. My guests tonight, we have Amos Kimunya, Jane Kihara, and of course we have Jacoyo Midio. My name is Ken Mijungu. Welcome to the show, and Sidebar begins right now.
The leader of majority trying to favor a particular company whom they wanted us to say that they were discriminated, who are supposed to pay 2.5 billion shillings to the Kenyan Revenue Authority.
Last week, I heard them say that it was probably Rotich who reached out to me. This week I'm hearing him say that Duale talked to me to protect Duale's company. I never knew that Duale is in the sugar business.
I am drafting a motion to discuss the conduct of the leader of majority and also the leader of minority, and specifically the leader of majority because of the abuse of office, because there was some form of interference.
Kanini Kega should admit that he did not steer this joint committee the right way.
Right, that's a good place to begin our program tonight with the latest from Kanini Kega, who chaired that was a joint chair of that Committee of Agriculture and Trade. And of course, the accusations cut across the minority and the majority. That's where we begin our conversation tonight. And I want to begin with your reaction, Jane, the latest. What's being said now? Accusations are flying across, and there's even a plan to introduce a motion in Parliament to censure majority leader because of his conduct.
Well, I think Kanini Kega did a good job, and if he feels that he was let down, he needs to prove it, and then we discuss it. I think that's all we need to say.
Okay.
Yes.
He's actually saying that was a very good report, that they did not get an opportunity to be heard. No one listened to them, and they are claiming that it changed suddenly. The focus of the report changed. I'd like to talk about that, but Moish, your initial comments in how this is now changing.
No, I think there's lots of hype about this, and lots of attention seeking by different people. And unfortunately, we are losing focus on exactly what is the issue. The task at hand was, is the sugar contaminated or not? But we now went on into so many sideshows in terms of bribes and everything else, and we seem to have lost the fundamental question that we needed to answer to the Kenyan people. Is the sugar safe? And remember, this came from a cabinet minister who actually stood and said there's mercury in the sugar.
Okay.
Right? But and as a result of that, then there was an issue raised in Parliament in terms of assurance to the Kenyan people whether they are taking safe sugar or not. But the committee, again, in its own wisdom, decided to expand the terms of reference. And in the excitement of going through an investigation,
they lost the focus.
They lost the focus, they got entangled themselves, and they lost everyone.
Okay.
So they did a lot of work, but it's like, you know, when you're jogging on a treadmill, yeah, you use a lot of energy, but you haven't moved.
Okay. I'd like to know who is responsible for the loss of focus. I'll be talking about that, but your initial comments.
Well, Ken, we are talking about many issues here. Corruption in Parliament, the integrity of the report, safety of the sugar that we are currently consuming, and the issues that went on as these investigations were on. And there are very many issues, including the transfer of the government chemist from the Ministry of Health to Ministry of Interior. Well, there's more than meets the eye. You know, sugar, it's sweet, except this one I think will go sour.
Okay, it's gone sour. I don't think it's still sweet anymore. I like to know who is responsible for the lost focus. But before I talk about that, let's watch this.
We were misused as a committee. We were taken on a wild goose chase because nobody was even listening to what we were saying.
Kennedy Keg approached me on the corridors of Parliament and persuaded me, because he had heard that I'm not comfortable with that report. And he was trying to persuade me that just pass it. I mean, I cannot just pass a report.
If Kanini Kagan knew the report was good, and I heard your submissions on the floor, you talked about the legality and where we should not even be discussing a report that is illegal to begin with. But if Kanini Kagan was sure the report was good, as the minority leader says, why did he approach him in court? We take their word for what it is. Why would he have to approach members of Parliament? Because I want to talk about that approach to members of Parliament.
I think there's obviously concerns in terms of, as the draft report was released to the members as it's tabled, and I'm calling it draft report because until it's passed by the House, it's not, you know, the report. The report of the committee came on the board. People read it. Some people felt that it had not covered their interests. You know, there are people who wanted ministers indicted. There are people who wanted sugar companies indicted.
In Parliament or outside Parliament?
You know, people get emotions.
Okay.
There are people who wanted to know, is the sugar safe or not? So people had different interests. And if you didn't find your interest in the report,
okay,
you then wanted to have those interests covered.
Okay.
For example, we saw attempts by people to amend the report, right? So that they could make specific references in terms of, or specific recommendations to have some ministers take responsibility. And I actually stood on that and I said, because I've been a victim of that kind of, you know, mob justice within Parliament, that within our constitution, we made it very clear. This is how you get ministers to taking responsibility in terms of actions. You know, there's a due process, which is captured within the constitution. You don't just hijack a report of a committee and then start saying, let's change this to say, Minister so-and-so should take responsibility. Okay. You're basically saying they should be removed from office and basically without going through the constitutional route.
Basically, what you're telling me, the interests were within the committee, the 38 members.
No, even outside, even within Parliament.
Within Parliament.
Because as the debate, as the days passed, the original intention, which is what Honorable Naisura had asked,
yes,
is the sugar safe or not? And how did this unsafe sugar get into the country? Okay. What can be done to destroy it? Okay. You know, it was very clear what she wanted.
And that's not what happened.
And then the committee, and again, it's usual in most of this research, in most of this investigation, it's as they stumble over different sets of information, if you're not focused, you're likely to be distracted, and you now start investigating matters beyond your original terms of reference.
But you know, Naisura's question came in between. They had already started the job. and they brought
No, it's the one that triggered the job.
that report. No.
Yeah, it's the one that triggered.
Mheshimiwa, we had a draft report when they came. They asked for extension. That is the time.
Did they ask for extension, or they were sent back to do a proper report?
No, they had asked to be allowed to bring it later.
We correct the situation.
They had asked, Mheshimiwa.
No, Honorable Nesula sought a statement. Then it was referred to the committee. The committee did the job and could not finish, so they tabled a preliminary report and sought an extension, right? And at that point, it was very, very clear they were meandering into different areas. And the speaker redirected them. Can you focus on what the member had asked?
Okay.
Right? And then we expected that the focus would be that, and if you look at the report, it starts very well. That this is what the member sought in their statement, which is even attached within the report, and it was reduced to 5.
Which came first?
The request for the statement.
Naisura came in the middle of a debate of a draft report.
No, it's the other way around. She actually sought a statement.
Let's begin with the first one.
Yes.
When Justin Muturi said you did a shoddy work, you have to go back.
The preliminary report.
Preliminary, the first one.
The preliminary report.
This one you're treating as preliminary.
The preliminary report was answering the request by Honorable Nesuda.
Okay. So
and then in that she was actually asked to clarify what exactly had she requested.
Okay.
Yes. But Ken, you know, this issue of sugar was all over. It was all over even before the committee was given the job.
Yes. Yeah. So when Matiani started and went to Eden.
So they were given that assignment to investigate.
Okay.
And then when they brought the first report, that is the time Mheshimiwa Naisura asked
specific questions to be answered. Okay.
So it is among the report.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think
Jacob, because he was watching for him outside.
But we have a copy of the report we can see.
Well, you know, Ken, this is prime time.
Yeah.
And let me begin by disagreeing with Waziri Kimunya here. Kimunya. You know, this report, I've been in Parliament for 15 years. I've only been out the last 1 year. But this is one of the best reports, parliamentary reports I've ever seen. It addresses all those questions. What is what the problem is here is not the content of the report. Is the mere fact that the parliament is intentionally choosing to mislead the country for the sake of corruption. Remember, this is a trade war. The people who have been discussed in Parliament, whether they are Rai or they are the Somali businessmen in Italy, they don't come from the sugar sector. This is a big thing. You know, we are even being told that these people have imported sugar that will stay in this country, will last this country another 3 years. It means all the sugar growing is dead for the next 3 years.
Yes.
That is what and this report attempts to address that.
Yes.
Where you say there is a member of parliament who says, I am uncomfortable because a cabinet secretary is not named or is named. Actually, that is the crux of the matter.
The interest in
If you go to recommendation 5.5, it names Rotich. They are questioning, why did Rotich put a gazette notice out there that says anybody can import sugar? And then he says, powdered milk. He has, for you to import it, you must get authority and permit. And sugar, he sets it free for all. Why would Rai, for example, who is a licensed sugar miller in Western Kenya, he's supposed to work with farmers to change their lives. At what point would he be allowed to import sugar?
Okay.
So who does his other responsibility of working with our farmers to improve their lives, to create employment? I've been in a show, actually in this studio, not too long ago with leaders from Western Kenya, because I saw them talking in funerals. out of turn. I saw them saying very serious things, that this guy has employed our people, he has employed many lawyers. I said, this guy has outsourced lawyer jobs to Brazil.
Yes.
That is where the
sugar.
problem is.
Okay.
So the question which is not answered here in this report, and they have attempted to figure it out. They have said because KEBS found 705,000 tons, which is unfit for human consumption. They have said KEFIS, sort it out. Then they have also said the relevant investigative authorities to go after, to sort out this mess, because that is not the work of Parliament. And for Parliament, Ken, if you indulge me, for Parliament to talk about, you've seen the minority leader saying if the report comes back, I will shoot, but it's not telling people the content of the report. I come from the sugar sector. I am the one who went to court to stop the privatization of sugar farms. I know what it means to our people. But
no, I see, Ken, without interrupting, you can now see the interests.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
they cut across.
We are not even looking at what was the original terms of reference.
That's why we get
because
lost.
Everyone is looking at what is my interest. Immediately you mentioned sugar. The issue was very clear, and they are listed. There's 5 items that the committee was supposed to inquire into. But immediately the inquiry started, people started talking of our farmers are suffering. The sector is happening. I agree. Yes. But that should have been a separate question. And I would have wished the members of Parliament from the sugar growing areas to have brought their own request for a statement to say what is the impact of all this importation on the sugar growing in the areas as a separate item.
Okay.
But riding on a question that has been asked, which is very specific, that is the sugar safe or not? Okay. Right? Now, when you broaden it to start getting all other things, and even look at the title.
No, but let me just say. Let me
say this thing. The request on the statement was: is the sugar safe or not? What is the title of the report? A report on the illegal importation of sugar. Not report on the safety of sugar.
Right? No. But that's why it started. You agree, but you agree that's why it started, the illegal importation, and it compounded.
But sugar cannot be illegally imported if it's imported pursuant to a legal notice.
Because there was sugar that was imported after the legal notice. That's what they're saying.
So long as it's imported pursuant to a legal notice, it cannot be illegal.
Okay.
And even now, you can import sugar.
Yes.
Except that you pay duty. Right? The legal notice only said that people who import within this window will be exempted from paying duty. Now, if you import sugar even today,
you pay duty.
You pay duty.
I'd like to indulge Jane in this, but first, because you believe interest in Parliament, that's where the problem began. I know you wanted to respond, but Justin Muturi did not think that that's where the problem began. He didn't think that the problem began with the interest in Parliament, probably outside. Let's listen to this. We're getting back to that because I'm looking for Justin Muturi condemning members of Parliament in the report, saying that they didn't do a good job, and he has a reason for not doing that, right?
Because of not following the terms of reference.
No, terms of reference, but initially the report that was thrown out is a different reason. Jane, the interest in Parliament. Yes. I mean, Parliament, legislators, you're supposed to come to Parliament and you should have one accord, regardless of the party you're affiliated to. Where did they get lost? Where did they get lost? When did this interest start infiltrating?
It is just interest from day one, because when we are investigating sugar, somebody already knows that there is sugar that has come in. It has been brought by somebody, and there is somebody who has lost market, and there is somebody who
exactly.
You know, all those things combined. But like Mheshimiwa says, Jakoyo, it's that from the morning, that morning.
Okay.
The discussions were all over corridors.
You believe it started in the morning, not in the committees when they were sitting?
No, that this thing was not going to be passed.
Okay.
There was a lot of...
No, it actually started in the committee.
In the committee,
It started in the committee. And we saw members of the committee coming to say, on television, that indeed the committee, the report has been doctored.
Okay.
You remember that?
Okay.
And they actually attempted to amend the report. And we were told you cannot amend the report you have signed.
Okay.
So they then gave those amendments to another member to try to bring those amendments.
Honorable Kimunya something.
No, no.
Yeah,
I'm telling you the facts.
Yeah, that's
Because
okay.
you're not there.
I understand. I was not there, but I watched because I come from the sugar belt
No,
also.
an amendment.
But use my experience. It may help you. Now you are an ordinary member of parliament. Let me tell you. The original term of reference was that there was illegal sugar in the market, mercury contaminated by chemicals.
Yes.
That was the outcry. That is what sent Parliament into panic and the whole country. The question is not answered. But how then the committee had to answer how the sugar came in.
Yes, the contaminated sugar.
The contaminated sugar.
How did the contaminated sugar come in? Not all the sugar.
One Rotich opened the floodgates and he went and gazetted that anybody can import sugar.
Yes.
Let me tell you, without regard to the effect of what it would do to Kenyans and the farmers. Now, this thing that is being peddled out there, that Kanini Kega and his committee cannot amend their report. It is their report. Your report, your chairman, you are the only one, and I dare you to tell me which standing orders. Even the ones we changed, it enhances the power of the committee, the chair and its members to have control of their report.
At what point?
At any point.
No, after tabling.
Even after tabling, you can change your own report on the floor. You remember?
With the support of members?
With the support
of the chairman exclusively?
The chairman, and you know, I was there when when this thing came about, when Mutava Musimi was the chairman of budget committee. We did many amendments, but only the chair can amend the report. It is in the standing orders. Only the chair. For you to stop him from amending his report to make it better or to enrich it, there's more than meets the eye.
And even the report.
No, let me say this. Can I say this?
Has not
Can I just say
the
one thing?
minister.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
You know, there is a member of parliament called Fatuma Gede.
Yes, the lady.
The one who is being accused to have been giving the bribes. She said, I watched her, that she was lobbying. You know, Parliament must get this thing correct, and Kenyans must put you to task.
Okay.
It is not the duty of a member of Parliament to become a lobbyist.
Okay.
Lobbyists are paid differently. Members of Parliament go to the plenary. Those things she's saying out here should have been said on the plenary. Yes. Should have punched holes on this report.
Hold your thought.
Talking to the report.
Hold your thought. We're coming back to discuss from the premises of those claims and of course the outrage that it has attracted across the country. We're coming back with sidebar, but before we leave, let's take a look at some of your feedback. Do we have them? All right, on Twitter, we don't have the SMS line today. Kenyans may never really know whether they drank sugar that was contaminated with mercury or not. That's based on the fact that we have lost focus and we're not saying about this. I'd like to get that out in the next, after the break. Is the sugar safe for human consumption? That is the most important question that still remains unanswered. I'd like to get answers. We survive by God's grace. Kenyans can be poisoned. Kenya can poison a fellow Kenyans for an extra shilling. I like to talk about that because the substance, but when we come back, let's first talk about the fact that Gedi talked about being compromised or compromising people, and she denied it, and of course other members. When we come back, we take a short break.
I have a responsibility to oppose, as I said, and also to support. But in this report, yes, I did mobilize the members, and that is my responsibility. And I have no apologies to make to do that, because we saw the two co-chairs contradict themselves in this report. We saw the members themselves contradicting themselves in the same report, that it took times, weeks. We saw that. We saw the chair and a member in a national television discussing a report before tabling the house. What we saw in that house was the same committee who was speaking in two different languages. So as a member, and more so a new member of this house, who will you believe? I read the report, and what I did was good for this country and was good for the house. I actually restored the dignity of the house, but I've never ever bribed a single member.
Wale wabunge wamegawiwa pesa kuvunja ripoti ya kamati ambayo imetambua nani alileta sukari chafu. Wale lazima waadhibiwe.
Shika waizi wote Kenya. Shika wote. Kama ni shwazuri, weka ndani. Enda Kenya pipeline, weka ndani. Hata wabunge walikula rushwa jana, shika wao.
Right, the last part was a reaction from the first part, right? Let's talk about Gedi, and I'd like to begin with you, Mheshimiwa, because you're very concerned about what she said, and I almost see all of you, I saw almost all of you smile when she said that she restored the dignity of the house. I mean, it's an all-time low. No one believes this parliament is doing some good job. You in parliament, he's out of parliament.
So which dignity is she talking about? you know, when she's the one...
By mobilizing members to...
By giving them 10,000 shillings? That is indignifying the face of our house.
Okay.
You know, I'm one of those proponents of giving more power to parliament after reorganizing parliament, because after 2010 we ended up with a monster which cannot help this country. I've been there. It is a dysfunctional, it is inoperable, and look at what it has produced. This lady, who is she talking for? Those things she's saying, she has just chewed airtime and talked about the semantics around the report without talking about the content of the report. She's a member of parliament. She did not contribute to this report.
On the floor.
On the floor.
On the floor.
Yes.
You know, if she has powers to mobilize, she would also have powers to direct members to think differently about the report.
Yes.
But she did not. She was sent by somebody, most likely a sugar baron. It's like a sugar baron. Let me disclose something to you, Ken. There's a company that has gone to court. They were in ordinary court, then they went to court of appeal. They actually got a case. They got a judgment to bring in sugar because KRA said they brought their sugar outside the time.
Yes.
Then KRA went and appealed when the court, and courts are very culpable because they're dealing, this thing has to do with lives of Kenyans. KRA went and appealed in court of appeal, and they got a judgment. That company has gone to Supreme Court.
That's Darasa.
Yes.
That's Darasa.
And they are associated with the ship which is offshore called MV Iron Lady, which is full of sugar, which has been out there since October. You can imagine the moisture levels in that ship that they are saying, suppose Supreme Court allowed them today to bring in that sugar. It means a whole ship, and many Kenyans have never seen a ship. You're talking about tons, thousands of tons that is about to be poured here to add on to what we have here. That is why this report says, stop that importation. It addresses directly and says, look for a better way of doing this in a way that does not hurt Kenyans. MPs can go around, they can skirt around issues, but we have seen us as MPs come and go. But Kenyans, please,
must remain.
We can do better.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the unfortunate thing is we tend to think of the politics around things rather than the facts. And Honorable Gedi is within her rights to defend herself. She was accused that people said she was giving bribes, and she actually went to the media center to say, nobody gave me bribes, and if you did, show me the evidence. Basically, and you can't deny her that. Yeah, she has a right to clear herself. And in terms of lobbying, and I think this is global, on any matter in Parliament, you can lobby your colleagues in two ways. One, through debate on the floor, right? Or by reaching out to colleagues to support you.
One-on-one.
One-on-one, yes. That's allowed, and that's global. So if she was lobbying, she did not do anything wrong. I obviously was in the house. I never saw money moving hands. And if that money moved hands, there's enough cameras in the house. There's enough intelligence officers in the house. There's a whole press center in Parliament, right? So I'm expecting that whoever has evidence will then present it to the Speaker,
Did you
who has now actually
ordered for investigations.
Ordered for investigation and called for anyone who has evidence that money changed hands to present it so that we can now talk
Don't you think this evidence is already enough? The MPs that are admitted being bribed. Do you think that's enough evidence?
People can say that for purposes of media and all that.
But they've never said it previously. We've never had MPs come out clearly and say we were bribed.
We would like to see, because Parliament cannot work on rumors and feelings. It's a house of evidence, right? So whoever has evidence that they have been bribed, they should give the evidence that I was bribed by so and so.
Okay.
And that there's a formal mechanism through which we do that. It's the same thing that's happened. And I think when we look at this within the bigger picture of what's happening within the war on corruption, the judiciary, the Chief Justice has asked the multi-action task force, multi-agency task force, to move in on the judiciary and clean up for him. The president has asked move in with the executive and clean up the executive for him. The Speaker has done the same. So anyone who has evidence about bribes in the house, let us focus within that, rather than start calling that this is a house of bribes. Let us tackle the bribes in the house.
Okay.
Right? I think the long and short of this, Mheshimiwa, is that this was predetermined. This report was bound to just fail.
Even
why didn't they waste taxpayers' money?
The design of the committee.
No, don't say about the design of the committee.
They designed that report
maybe
to
because
fail.
of that lobbying.
Okay.
It is maybe because of the bribes, but it was out to fail. I said it myself that I was approached by somebody with no good reason to tell me now, you know, I have been asked to lobby Nakuru MPs.
Is that a member of Parliament?
Yes, in the chamber. I'm the one lobbying for Nakuru, and this report you are dropping. I asked, who says? Allegedly, he told me that
he named somebody.
He said
he named Duale.
Yeah,
now that you're naming Duale, who is this person who came to tell you?
No, don't ask. That one.
You named Duale.
Yeah, you've just named Duale. I mean, if it's honest, you can name. Like Didmas has named someone. You have privileges also.
We will see it in the camera. We will get to the camera.
And I told him, look, Mheshimiwa, you know, when somebody mentions Duale is the majority leader, yes, and Jubilee majority leader. So maybe it's to scare us that this is the position of the government. That's what I thought.
Whether he had been signed by Duale or not.
Or not, we don't know.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Why are you uncomfortable naming the person who? Because this is what the authorities are investigating or should be investigating.
No, I think when it gets there, if I have to be asked,
you'll be comfortable naming the person.
Yes.
Did he lobby you with money or with
No. It's just words. He did not offer me money.
There's somebody
and then my answer was, I am going to vote with my conscience because I was elected by Naivasha people.
Exactly.
That's what I told him. And then the next person and the next person, somebody passes by, tunaangusha. Wacha tuangushe. So this thing was long predetermined.
That it will fall. No wonder now I get, no wonder we never had the opportunity to get the content of the report. And that is a complaint of the members of that committee.
And even when it was being delivered, there was so much noise.
I dare any member especially the offices that are resourced, well resourced to read, like mine was when I was deputy minority leader, to show me a parliamentary report which is as good as this one. Show me. Especially the ones that have to do with agriculture. I would be shocked. This is a good report. Number two, it is okay, Honorable Kimunya, to lobby.
Yes.
But when you are lobbied by somebody with no proper interest and with no local standard, you should ask, what is their interest?
Yeah.
You know, this to me, I have seen this lady, I've seen an MP called Didman, or
Didmas
Baraza.
Yes.
I watched him on another show today. And he said, let Parliament produce the camera. If she did not approach him, he is saying, Parliament, the House is on camera. My appeal is for the DCI to order this MP to come and write a statement. We will not win this war against corruption
Based on allegations.
if parliamentary privileges are being used for the wrong
Reason.
to wrong Kenyans. Let me just tell you, when you say a member of parliament is a house, parliament is a house of evidence, a house of this, corridors of parliament are not covered by that privilege, and the privilege you get, it's borrowed from Kenyans. When you say it tunaangusha, and we are not answering the question of whether there is sugar out there which has mercury, that is corruption.
It is.
That is corruption. In fact, it's an economic crime. It is also, that is actually a murderous crime. So what am I saying? The DCI, save Kenya from the mess in parliament. Save Kenya from the mess in parliament. Because, Honorable Amos, Honorable Jane, you've been there, been there for a long time. Do not come before Kenyans and say there's no corruption in parliament. Because I would not do it. It will leave you with a bad egg on your face. It will. And where we are, this one with sugar, where we cannot answer fundamental questions.
I think we are doing very well, and I support. And I think that's the point. I want to agree with the speaker, right? That we must clean up parliament. It has to be a house of honor. That's why members of parliament are called honorable members, right?
Okay.
Where people vote based on their conscience, based on looking at issues to the best interest of their constituents, rather than because of monetary considerations, right? That we all agree. And I believe, and the other thing is that, you know, in terms of the committee report, it was unfair to the committee. They probably didn't get their report to be appreciated by the membership, right? But like I said, even within the committee, even at the point of the committee deliberations, you could see lots of interest. Friends of the committees becoming more than the members of the committee. The committee of 38 ended up being like the whole place is swarmed. You have like 70 people there.
Right? So, do you agree with Duale when he said that this is the last time he expects to see a joint committee?
I agree totally.
You agree with him?
I agree, because when you have 38 people trying to look at this matter, they cannot agree on issues.
And maybe they were
so the committee was, first of all, it's too large
to drop the report.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's too large.
Like you just heard Amina say that the co-chair disagreed with the report.
Yes.
But he didn't contribute in the House. He didn't say anything.
He did not go on record.
Yes. But he also had members of the committee disagreeing with the report. So within the 38 membership, obviously, you know, there's a management saying that says committees, you know, a camel is a horse designed by a committee, right? You know, when you have a committee and you task it to do something, the different interests of the different people will start polling, do this leg, do like that.
So you're agreeing, right? The fewer the better.
The fewer the better.
But
some of these things, a small select committee of experts and people who have an issue to contribute in that area would have done better.
When we did the standing orders just before the end of last parliament, we reduced the numbers of members in the committees, because we had realized, we had figured out the dysfunctionality. But when MPs came, the first order was to increase the numbers. And
to
it is for
most of them.
To accommodate most of them.
Yes.
In fact, the formula we devised.
That was very small. It was an increase of from 17 to 19, which is not, two, which is not,
well,
yeah. And
that was
it was from 17 to 19,
yeah.
And the reason we did it is to be able to accommodate the number of members within the committees.
Okay.
Because when you have so few, then some people are going to be left out.
But what I wanted to say is this, just so we don't lose focus. Yeah. When I left Parliament, I was made to understand there were about 30 plainclothes police officers, CID. I would be shocked if the DCI has not summoned them a week later to say what they saw, what they recorded. If the media is saying they saw, a trained police officer who is put there to see must see, and they must help Kenyans unravel this thing. I disagree with something, Amos, that you're saying, that let the speaker has run out of options. He also is also just trying to do it. But I can tell you what Parliament must accept is what the friends of the president have to accept. He said, I have lost so many presidents. The people who have made president lose many friends must make Parliament lose its bad face.
When the media tried to report, and People Daily reported and had a very bold headline, the House of Bribes, the next week they were summoned in Parliament. They were summoned and told to substantiate. There was a lot of PR around it, but the truth is they were summoned. Yes, so the media, this is not the first time the media is claiming. And by the way, we have pictures of envelopes with money from 10,000 to 30,000 shillings.
No, which is fine. And I believe immediately we get all that evidence, you know, so long as there's evidence, what are we sitting on evidence doing?
No, but I asked you what we are trying to get you to say, what we are trying to get you to say,
so that we can get the culprits nailed.
I asked you a
That's how we are going to
question.
clean up institutions. We are not going to clean up institutions by discussing. We are going to clean up institutions by saying, here's the evidence, DCI, take action.
We're taking a break, but I asked you a specific question. The admission of these many members, is it not sufficient?
No, admission by many members, who are you going to take action on?
That they tried to be bribed, or they were bribed.
If somebody says I was bribed, they must also say I was bribed by so and so.
By so and so, okay.
Right?
We need to end this because we need to discuss something
else. Or somebody attempted to bribe me. But if you don't,
but this must have said the attempt to bribe me was by this lady called Geddy. I mean, how much more information do you need?
He should provide that evidence.
Which evidence?
You can even swear an affidavit.
He said that in the media. We have now been told, anyone who has evidence to present it before the privilege committee. Then once we have that, then the committee can now take action, and we'll have a due process. So that people don't just do things politically, because politicians,
the whole
we are non-politicians.
was very ugly.
It was ugly.
Let's say this.
It was.
Because
we need to clean it up.
Even when Kanini Kega was reading that report, I can assure you here, nobody bothered to listen
to it. There was a lot of noise in the chambers.
They were
I agree.
moving up and down, up and down, up and down. From
a small tower.
Right, a good point to take a break. When we come back, I'd like to talk about something else. The president losing friends in the war of corruption, how he has approached this, and how DCI, DPP, and of course EACC are approaching this. When we come back, let's get over and done with this. Let's look at a few of your feedback right now on Twitter. We have David Mwende say, we lost finding the truth when two cabinet secretaries gave conflicting report. That's Aden and Matiang'i at that time. All right, and Mungai Waiguru says, we survive by God's grace. Kenyans can poison a fellow Kenyans for an extra shilling. We read that earlier by Mungai. Do you have one more? Certified Savage, I don't know what he's saying. If individual members had respective interests, then what were the terms of reference inside? How did they even agree on it if they had individual interests? And we have a final one. That is Aidan Hussein says, bribery has never been a strange thing in our government institution. They just want to divert our attention from important things. I hope they're not diverting from corruption. And let's talk about that next. We take a short break. They stay with me for a little while. We talk about the president and the war when we come back. Right, welcome back. We're trying to get you that soundbite from President Uhuru Kenyatta talking about how he has lost friends in the war on corruption. But the most recent is the reclaiming of riparian lands around Nairobi. That's where they began. I'd like to talk about that as we wait for that, but let me begin with you. Let me begin with Jane. President Uhuru Kenyatta is very specific. He's not turning back on this. He's not turning back on this. And I think he's very straight shooting when it comes to this. But there are a lot of people who also think that this is not enough. It's PR. It's going to end soon. I don't know what you think.
I really hope that he goes the whole hog, because this is a problem I experienced. I was an assistant minister for environment, by the way. And there is a construction that was going on somewhere in Lavington. And the neighbors had teamed up together to come to the ministry. And when I went there, and I stopped it, and I went back, the police supervised the construction. So it is construction that has gone very far, very, very far. So he had just better move on. He has the support of Kenyans, and this is a mistake that has been made. And you remember Wangari Maathai told us, nature does not forgive. So we have seen it.
Okay.
We have seen it.
Okay. Amos, Big Four versus fighting corruption. If you were to advise the president, Big Four versus fighting corruption.
You see, there are three things the president is doing. First of all, there's a Big Four, okay, which is transformational. The manufacturing, food security, you know, the health and housing. Right? Those four are intertwined. But you're not going to achieve those four if the environment is still riddled with corruption.
Okay.
If it's still riddled with impunity. So one of the biggest enablers to achieve the four must be the fight against corruption.
All right, just
and then
the third, we play the bat, then we come back.
The third leg on that must also be the national cohesion.
Okay, let's play this and then come back to that discussion.
Few weeks, I've lost very many friends, Bishop. Because I've been receiving so many calls that, you know, how can you just sit there and watch all this destruction going on? You must stop it. And I said, well, it's difficult to stop. It's difficult to stop not because we love to destroy, but because we must fight impunity.
Yeah. All right.
And I think that's the underlying point. And we foresaw that, not just within this term of the president. 10 years ago, at the design of Vision 2030, and I chaired about all those meetings on the Vision 2030, we saw it that you're not going to have economic transformation, you're not going to have social transformation, unless you also transform the governance, right? So what President Uhuru is doing is basically coming to terms with, he's going nowhere with his Big Four agenda, so long as corruption is still as endemic as it is, so long as it's still embedded, and impunity is embedded within the cultural fabric of a society. So I would encourage him to go on. It's very painful, especially, for example, on third-party people who have bought tenants in some of those buildings coming down. Third-party purchasers for value who are innocent. But unfortunately, it has to be done. And if you don't do it now, another 3 years down the line, we'll start seeing the politics of 2022. So
forget about
we'll start saying we don't want to lose votes.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the time to do it.
Okay.
And do it to completion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just one small thing from what Amos has said. This third-party owners of this property, I think there's something amiss in these demolitions. I think we need to go after the developers.
First owners.
The first owners.
Yes.
Those need to compensate the people whose money they took.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to go along so that we carry everybody along.
The pain on third parties is ameliorated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That we can do, and I don't hear it being talked about. There's some people even saying government compensate. You can't compensate people who basically know they are living illegally. It's like the Mau, you know, just put it there. But Kenya is untidy. We must tidy up Kenya. I agree with Amos that you cannot have a society that needs to progress while the tools that we need to progress are illegal.
Or held hostage
by corruption. You know what happened in Kenya in the last 5 years? I thought Kibaki Raila left us on a good pedestal. When Jubilee came, one side of Jubilee held the other one hostage. And when I saw, after the rollover, after the new Jubilee government, when I saw Tobiko go, I saw Githu go, I saw Muhoro go, and then I saw the president publicly with the head of NIS, then I knew the game was about to begin. So when you say, is he just doing PR? I don't think so. I think the president means what he's doing. He needs our support as Kenyans. But there's so much to do. For example, some don't need demolitions. Some are people who have acquired public land and built. Order them out, let the property go back to government. Let the government figure out what. You don't have to demolish everything. We are demolishing the ones in riparian land. Somebody called them Liberian land, but in the riparian land, because we need to clean up the environment. But we also need to clean up road reserves using the same formula. But there are people who, in my language, we say have hard eyes. They have taken public land and built palatial things. Order them out. Tell them, give them 10 days, say, please pack up and leave.
Okay.
Yes. So that we can tidy up the attitude of the people, which seems to think, the public servants, who seem to think you can wake up and take public property and nothing will happen. In other words, there are too many public servants in Kenya who are in the wrong place.
And unfortunately, you know, the corruption is in the government.
Yeah.
There are many governments that have been there. I'll tell you this. When we were being employed, when we were young, we were leaving the government to go for bigger salaries in private sector. These days, people leave private sector to come to government because that is where there's money. Because there are windows of corruption. And this is, Kenya is just rotten. And people have to be just serious.
Okay. Do you believe the president switching his phone is one of the ways to do this? Because he's switched off his phone completely. No one is calling him because I believe most of those people can't reach him.
Well,
I'm
not sure reaching him or not reaching him would.
Yeah, because that's what he said. Yes.
But he basically said he's prepared. I mean, the gist of the matter is that he will not spare anyone, friend or enemy. Yeah. So long as he's fighting impunity, he's prepared to lose even his friends. So nobody needs to go to him and say, spare mine for me. And you recall there was a time there was a demolition in South Sea at some point.
Near the church, the chapel, the Winners' Chapel.
And somebody,
that was the governor.
A leader called and said, spare my people, and it was spared. And I think he's also learned from some of those incidences that, you know, once you spare one, you must spare all. So if it's bad for one, it must be bad for all. If it's good for one, it must be good for all.
How bad is this for our economy, having been in the Ministry of Finance? How bad is this?
Obviously, there are costs, and I said it's painful seeing, you know, an investment going down. Because 2 billion in, what do you call this, the one opposite Tuskys.
Okay.
If it's
Southgate Mall.
Yeah, Southgate. If Southgate was put up for 2 billion and comes down, you know, there'll be banks that had lent money to the developer. They risk getting that money. It might end up being a bad debt. There are people who have suffered. So there will be some knock on the economy.
Okay.
But in the longer term, right? In the longer term, we must balance. Is it good to look at the short-term economic expediency
or the long
and
term,
the costs,
okay,
yeah, of the effects
but perhaps
of
Perhaps also to the investors coming into the country. One, we can no longer certify what kind of land we have. I met someone the other week who told me, Ken, if you need to buy land, make sure the person who's selling you land, wherever it is, can fence it. Tell them to put a foundation. That's the only time to be confident that that's his land and you can do something on it. Now we have investors who don't know what they're investing in, right? How is this going to affect our country ultimately?
No, let's put it this way. Anyone who has put land, some building on riparian, they knew it was riparian. Riparian has never changed. On the maps, it's shown very clear it's riparian. Anywhere there's a road, roads are not just being designed; they've always been there. So on riparian, on roads, it's very clear. Now, where it's a bit, of a decision to make is this public land or private land? Okay. Because if it's public land and it was allocated by government, in fact, there's precedent on all those things. If you look at the entire Kilimani and Kileleshwa, even Upper Hill, all these super buildings that have come up, Upper Hill used to be government housing, right? Public land.
Residential.
But that was then allocated, and in 2004 we took a decision that because there was so much development that had taken place, there's a principle that was brought into cabinet that where land has been substantially used for the same purpose as originally designed. So if it was for residential and residential houses have been put up, but of a different setup in terms of single unit to flats, you don't go breaking those, because even if you do that, you will still end up allocating it for housing, right? But land set aside for a road can only be used for a road. Okay. Land set aside for riparian reserve can only be used for riparian. So those are some principles.
Ken,
and it's captured within
what I
the
find
report
very
as well.
fallacious and interesting. If I have 2 billion shillings, or if a bank is willing to give me 2 billion shillings, why would I want to go and put it on a riverbank?
Impunity.
Impunity. This thing, we must help the president sort out this impunity. Because if you have that kind of money, you can even go build your own city in Kajiado.
Yes.
You understand? You have still invested. That is the kind of investor we need. But even this thing about public lands, when you talk about residential plots in Upper Hill or Kileleshwa, the people who own them, who have taken them from government, they stole them from government. So if we must deal with this thing of original theft. The fact that these buildings are coming up in residential area means that they need to, because we need space in buildings, and the building belongs to government, those things need to come back to government.
It's all covered, all that was covered within the Dongo report.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the whole essence of the Dongo report, to look at all those areas and make recommendations. They made those recommendations that I'm talking about.
Obasanjo, when he became president, he constituted a committee much like our EACC.
Yes.
That committee, he told them, I will support you. Reorganize the issue of impunity. The first house they garnished and demolished was Obasanjo's.
It was his.
And he said nothing. That is where we want the president to go. We want the president to accept. When he moves from here, riparian land is not only along Nairobi River. It is also those beach hotels in Mombasa.
Yes.
The ones where you can touch the beach, and Kenyans cannot access the beachfront. The reason why you have that thing is that the public part of it can be enjoyed by all of us.
Okay.
So what I would tell him, simultaneously, move to Mombasa, go to Kisumu. I would encourage the governors, like Governor Anyang' Nyong'o. Kisumu has no playground. Everybody who built on school land, a playground, those need to begin coming down.
By the governors.
Even so, by the governors, but not only the president.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that we can tidy up our country. I know it puts the government in a very unpopular footing. But the president has said he is willing. Okay. So all we can do is follow.
Okay. This land issue is such a problem, including private land, where he's allocated, I'm allocated, you are allocated, and then nobody can settle there.
Okay.
And the one who settles there is under threat of either thugs coming to burn your house.
Yes, exactly.
It is just too dirty.
Okay. I'd like to talk about something else in relation to this. The fact that the president has also moved not to shield anyone. We have seen high-profile arrests in the last week, starting from Ujamong, and now it's Kidero who's in the dock. No, Swazuri after Kidero. But before, let's listen to this.
We are here to do our work. These cowards only who resign. We are here. Mimi niko hapa. Hamnitoi wala hamwezi kulifanya lolote.
All right. Basically, Swazuri was saying that he's not going to leave. A week later, he left. I think I begin with Amos. That's something that you went through in Parliament also. You know, it's always hard for people to leave, but we have seen a lot of goodwill, and we have seen quite a number of people. Ojamong the other day was in court in handcuffs. Before Ojamong, there was someone else. There was the former town clerk, I think. Then we have seen until Governor Kidero who's in court. So this trend, you think it's sustainable? Because a lot of people also believe it was diversionary. They were diverting us from sugar. They diverted us from Roraka.
No, I wouldn't want to link sugar, Ruaraka, and all that into what's happening, because the investigations have been going on concurrently or separately, and there probably will be many more people either being arrested or not. But at the same time, I think we have this preoccupation of, you must arrest a big fish, right? We should be looking for justice. Be looking, whether it's corruption is by a small person or by a big person, let the person be arrested because of the crime, not because of their status, right? Because, we might, when you now focus on the person arrested, you now forget, in terms of the evidence you need, you're already putting him to the mob justice to say, we have arrested Ken Mijungu, yeah? So people look at your name rather than what you are purported to have done.
But fighting corruption is also perception.
It's perception,
yes.
But that perception will only make sense when there's a conviction.
Okay, at the end,
right?
because that's the ultimate question.
Yes.
Will
and
there be a
conviction,
conviction?
Yes.
Conviction is what will bring the perception that, yes, we took this person through due process,
okay,
and there has been conviction because of the crime, okay, not because of
the name.
The name.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't go the way of Amos.
Yeah.
We need to crack the whip. In Ghana, when Jerry Rawlings took power, he killed big fish. And when, I forget the numbers, but when he thought it was done, the people told him, kill some more. That is what reorganized Ghana. In this country, you can, I don't like the pessimism of Ken, that it is diversionary and all that, because I don't think these people are arrested from one point. I think, for example, what Bukala said in Mombasa, that there are about 33 governors who they want to arrest. We want to see those arrests. They came and said the files are untidy, because I actually understand how they were messing around with the files. It does not make them innocent. Dibal, calling it Dibal, but sorry, because I'm so used to Dibal. But let me tell you, look at the case of Swazuri. How do you buy government land, railway land, title it, then pay for the fictitious titles with government money and say I'm going nowhere? In other civilizations, including China, Swazuri would have been killed in Nyayo Stadium. He would have been put there, drop a big bomb, and then the country moves forward, so that you spare us the nonsense in the court. Let me tell you, last week, 2 weeks ago, sitting here on NTV show in the morning, I was served with a letter from a lawyer that Swazuri says, because I called him a thief, he's taking me to court. How happy am I as a Kenyan? In fact, I felt so good that he got to court before me. Because, and I told him, I said...
But until he's convicted...
No, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that you can go to Voi station, take this land, That is not the work of Land Commission. It is not. I mean, they have misunderstood their work. He understood his work to mean that he has come, land belongs to him and he can loot it when he wants. And the president, how I thank him, he has given the comfort. And the handshake has not, it's not left behind. They have given this whole war the comfort, because in the last 5 years of Jubilee government, the president was laid back. In fact, many people used to say he was lazy. You know what happened? These people stole carelessly. There's so much evidence. You know, for you to go and take like this quarter land next to ICD, National Land Commission, using politicians, go and grab that public land, sell it to SGR, and you want to say you are innocent.
Perhaps we should avoid the specific.
No, the case you can avoid. You can avoid.
Is in court.
No. You can avoid. Me, what I am left for now is speaking the truth.
So we don't discuss sub judice issues.
No.
Even for, yeah.
What I am saying is, these people, Kimunya, don't fear. You have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Okay.
Because the president has said, even if it is your wife, your mother, your child, we shall deal with you.
Okay.
I want to be on that good side of history.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me just tell you, when you defend public land, the way the late Wangari Maathai did, you can't do it with fear. When you defend public good, you know there in Spring Valley, that piece of land where some people that Wangari stopped, some people tried to build, and you can see this is a swamp.
Yes, it is.
You know, why can you say it is even in court? What is there to fear? We want that to go like yesterday.
Let me just say this,
bring it down
because it's important. I think president means business, and I just wonder what Tobiko can say about what is happening now. Because Harake Wako has always said that they have files of big fish, but they are not being prosecuted. You know, it has been there. There are some people who have been working, but being frustrated by the system, the corruption itself.
When the DPP got into office, and a few months later, he was invited by JLAC, Senate. Actually, he said that there's a problem at the EACC. He said that.
Yes.
And immediately he held a press conference later at State Law Office to change that position. And then he was sitting with Harake and a few more, you know. So you cannot say that, because he also complained about it.
No, I'm saying, but the files now have started coming.
Yes.
The most important thing you note is that previously there was lots of blame and counter blame.
Yes.
But what you notice is happening is that the various agencies are now working together within the framework
of the
multi-agency
and we are seeing results.
task force.
Yes.
So
that's what I
coordination is all that's required. So people are not flying and blaming one another to escape responsibility.
This country needs EACC. I think the people who are working now are not EACC. Now they are playing catch up. EACC, you know, even the file that Halaki was talking about, and I told you, EACC, I've said here, I've said everywhere, EACC will never work with Mubaya and Halake there. Because I'm talking about what I knew. But now that they are playing catch up, let them do it right. Because when this DPP came, he said the files, which were about the big fish, were defective.
Yes.
And they came from there.
Investigated, yes.
You understand?
I remember he only put 4 governors.
And that's why I was emphasizing that let the war on corruption not be on trying to look for big fish, regardless of the evidence being adduced. Let it be, let's capture the crimes that significantly
they're the ones who are never caught.
And I want to give you an example. Let me give you an example. Just recently we had this young guy who was caught battering the wife.
Yes.
And speedy
was given 12 years.
Was given 12 years.
Yes.
Now, what message has that sent to every Kenyan? That if you catch you, you'll be like him.
We don't
whether big or small. Right? And I think that those are the messages that we need to send. Rather than, you know, trying to look at, is it a big guy or a small guy?
But corruption fighting is still perception. I'd like us to end this discussion, but we have introduced a segment on Sidebar. It's called Toonside. I'd just like you comments on this. Let's look at it. All right, Uganda Supreme Court removes age limit. That's Museveni, M7, and you see a group of judges and they in the theater and move age limits. The reason why we are showing this cartoon today is because yesterday something tragic happened with Bobby Wine's driver, who is a member of parliament, and we always know this debate. So they try to fight, they try to come out and speak, but they're being surprised. So I just like your comments about what's happening in the neighboring country of Uganda, just briefly, then we'll end our discussion. Let me start with Jay. Are they where we were probably a few years ago?
Uganda is in its own class. I say this because they are changing their law every time, depending on what Museveni wants.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I suppose that's the unfortunate situation. Uganda had the opportunity of being progressive and moving forward. It's endowed with food, it's endowed with resources, and it's our major trading partner. So advancement of Uganda politically is good for Kenya. And I do hope that changing the age limits is not to tend towards senility so that people can make decisions that favor, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, where is Mugabe? He's not even dead. You know, there's this thing that God keeps the evil people in life longer. So I personally am not worried about Museveni. At his age, I think he's hoping against hope. That's why the wife is, I don't know, a minister, the son is chief advisor, all those things come and
General,
go.
the military.
We must understand that Museveni is kept in power, not by the Ugandan military, but because of the desire of the West to exploit the minerals in Congo. And that is something which is never a debate. So all that will come to pass. It will come to pass. But the Ugandan situation is not as easy as going to the ballot. It is a complicated thing. It is the main reason why the West never comment even when he kills somebody.
Okay.
Because it's minerals.
But it's so sad that an MP, in terms of had to lose life in the cause of democracy.
Okay.
And we sympathize with the people who believe in the cause.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a minute each to conclude, but before we conclude, let's take some feedback right now. This is the last feedback we're taking right now. And on Twitter, Masharia Wanjugu said those honorable members who were bribed should be stripped of their honorary status. Laikipia KOT, this government is total failure. It's a thorn in the flesh to the poor. However, our God remains supreme. Right, that's all we have. Oh, confusion in Parliament over sugar importation will likely swallow the real issues of catastrophic sugar. That's something we have discussed here extensively. And Izo Mudara says, please tell the president he loses one friend, he gains 10. We are with him until the end. All right, let's conclude with that tweet. Let me begin with Jakoi. Just briefly, we have to end.
He loses
one friend and gains 10 Kenyans.
I think he gains more like 1 million Kenyans.
Yes.
When he loses, that I think Kenya is on a good pedestal. I think we must use this opportunity to change, to tidy up Kenya, because we may never get another handshake. Okay. I mean, in our lifetime. So I think we must make good use of this opportunity.
Okay.
Yep. I'm glad we are where we were in beginning of 2003. The optimism Kenya has had in terms of change, and I cannot hope it gets sustained. But most importantly, I would like to just take this opportunity to appeal to Kenyans. Parliament is still our best hope in terms of supporting reforms by these other institutions. And let's not lose faith in Parliament, but let's all help in getting rid of the bad apples
Okay, in
Parliament.
Parliament. Let them also help us
Yes.
by putting more hope in us, by doing the right thing.
And getting the right people elected into Parliament.
Elected. So that's where it begins, electing
Yes.
the right people to Parliament.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen quite a number of tweets wishing Jacomi Dio was back in Parliament and their MP. Yes, I've seen quite a number.
Yeah,
I've seen quite a number.
What I can say that this country belongs to all of us, and when it is right, we are safe. It is our responsibility. Do your bit, whoever you are, wherever you are. Do what you have to do. Let us support the president and shape this country. We either shape in or shape out.
All right.
This is a moment.
All right. Thank you.
But Ken,
Yes.
what Amos has said cannot be said enough. Parliament is still our only hope. And we must have faith in the institution. You know, there are a few bad apples, but people have been to Parliament and they have left. I was in Parliament, I left. But Parliament is the only place we know its address.
Yes, and
Parliament, we know the address of Parliament.
Okay.
When they do wrong, we can come here and bash them, but Parliament is the hope of our nation.
Kenya.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Asante.
On this day 9 years ago, the CASA, that's Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission boss, then Justice Aaron Ringera, told judges they were to blame for stalling the war on corruption. Now, Justice Ringera said graft cases were adjourned too often, either at the request of the accused persons or by the courts. Now, he also, at the same time, absolved his officers from the blame, saying they did not have the powers to prosecute. You remember, toothless? And even gave an example of a case that was filed back in 2005 that had not been heard by that date. Now, today, the script may have changed. The courts, we see them, they're more proactive. There have been minimal adjournments. In fact, just last week, the Chief Justice told lawyers they should stop them altogether. That's the adjournment. And ODM leader Raila Odinga says Parliament is now the biggest impediment to the war on graft. In the past week, the House seems to have done very little to redeem that image, and the National Assembly's credibility has been on the all-time low. Also, on this same very day, in 2008, former ethics PS John Githongo announced he will be coming back to the country on the Prime Minister Raila Odinga and then Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka's invite. Githongo was self-exiled after blowing the whistle on Anglo-leasing scandal. A good place to end Sidebar this night. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you to my guests here for coming to join us in this discussion. We didn't have time to discuss the constitution of the House and the debate on whether it should be reduced, but thank you. We'll get another time for that.
Exactly.
And thank you for my crew right here for everything they've done to make this show a possibility this evening. Thank you very much, and good night. Let's do this again next week on Tuesday at 10 p.m.